Shane Dripshack, Thursday night basketball in focus, off to another good Thursday night start, and no better way to start things off than with Bill Chambers, Northern Guilford High School men's basketball coach, former North Carolina Tar Heel basketball player, and he played for Coach Dean Smith. Got Coach Chambers to join us tonight. He's talking about Coach Smith, talking a little bit about his basketball team as well at Northern, but first and foremost, very important service today down in Chapel Hill. Coach, you were there today to take in Coach Smith's service today.
Yeah, it was an excellent service, really meaningful. A lot of the lettermen came back. I think it was a private service just for the lettermen of Coach Smith, and it was very good. It was very good.
You could start rattling off names of people that might have been there. You just could go on forever and ever. Probably there today. The names that are there.
Yeah, I know Michael Jordan was there, and Larry Brown, John Thompson, former coach at Georgetown. Him and Coach Smith were really tight, and yeah, Mitch Kupchak was there. That was the same year as Mitch. We came in together in Chapel Hill in 1972. Mike Krzyzewski was there, and Coach Guthridge was there, and yeah, a lot of fine people.
And how long did the service last? You guys get underway sometime early this afternoon?
Yeah, it started at 11 o'clock and finished about 12:30 or so.
Gotcha. Will you also go back for the memorial service later on this month?
I think so. On the 22nd, Sunday the 22nd at 2 o'clock, they're going to have a public service in the Dean E. Smith Center, so I think I'm going to go back for that.
And you went today, and gosh, just all those players you were with at North Carolina. You were with a lot of unreal names, but you were Bobby Jones, those guys back with that class. And I was looking up some of that today. It looked like at one time you were there along with Bob McAdoo, I guess, at the same time partially too, right?
Well, Bob McAdoo, he graduated the year before I came. But I did play with Bobby Jones. In fact, I sat with him today at the reception after the service and got to talk with him some. But Bobby Jones was such a great player. He was a great defensive player. I think he was a defensive player of the year in the NBA on defense, defensive player of the year. And I can tell you a quick story about him. I was a sophomore at Grimsley High School, and he was a senior at South Meck, and we were playing at Grimsley. I think it was in the state quarterfinals, but we were down by 1 point with about 10 seconds to go, and they passed me the ball on the wing, and I'll never forget, I thought I made a good move and got by my defender, and I went up for the shot. And I wasn't used to guys coming from weak side help and coming at you, but Bobby Jones came, weak side help, blocked my shot, and we ended up losing by 3, I think. They went down and scored, and that was the game. But when I went to Chapel Hill my freshman year, Bobby Jones was there, and I remember the first week there, I said, "Bobby, do you remember that shot that you blocked that I took there in that game?" And he said, "Yeah, I remember." That's what he told me. So.
He brought a lot of emphasis to defense, like you said with the 76ers. Used to be like the chairman of defense. Remember, that was about the time they started coming out with these different specialized posters, and you see him on a poster like that. I mean, he brought special meaning to playing defense in the pros.
He surely did. He was just so intense and had a great sense of shot blocking and always great positioning, and really a tough player as well.
And you were with Bobby Jones, I guess later on, maybe out of South Meck also. Maybe Walter Davis came through that way out of South Meck, played for Coach David Price. That was a different David Price we've known at Dudley, but the David Price at South Meck had loads of success back there in those days. The South Mecklenburg, you don't hear this name much anymore, the Sabres back in the day.
Sabres, that's right. Yeah, Walter Davis was a great player too. I ended up kind of being his backup actually. Walter would give a tired signal and come out for 30 seconds, and I would go play for a little bit, and then he'd be ready to go, and I'd come back out. But yeah, Walter was a great player. But yeah, I played with Tom Lagarde, Walter Davis, Phil Ford. Those are kind of some of the better players. They all went to 1976 Olympics with Coach Smith.
Exactly, right.
And I think John Thompson was the assistant coach for that team. But yeah, they brought back the gold in '76. So yeah, Walter Davis was a really good player, fine individual too.
You know, you brought up about the fist for being tired of the court, need to come out. The fist being held up, pointing toward the player when he made a good play. If you scored, you got a good pass, you pointed to the player. The blue team, all these things, and the 4 corners. I mean, Coach Smith came up with all those things.
Coach Smith was such an incredible innovator. He just had all these great ideas about basketball and really deep ideas about life too. He was a devout Christian and really dedicated his life to helping people. But yeah, you mentioned the blue team. It was great for me in that I was on the blue team.
I thought you might have been.
Yeah, and I got to play, so I got to play a little bit in every game, and it was really, really fun. We would have our own little game against the other team, and Coach Smith would always put us in with between 6 and 4 minutes left in the first half, and the idea was we would go in and play and give the starters a rest for a few minutes, and they would come back in really fresh to finish out the first half. But most of the time, we actually would win. We would win our little game within the game. We would play against the
Yeah, they used to keep
Coach
up with that
Smith
on television, too. We were watching
Really?
the games on TV, and the announcers would keep up with that about how the blue team affected the game while they were in the game. I thought was a big, like you said, big key.
Yeah, we would pass the ball around. There was no shot clock back then, and the other team would kind of get mad, get tired, and then somebody would get a backdoor layup, and so we made them play defense for a while, and the other team probably didn't like that. And then we were a pretty good defensive team as well, so we were able to stop them and box out and get the rebound. So yeah, it was fun. Coach Smith would keep up with how we did in our little game, the blue team against the regular team during each game.
Talk about how your role changed coming out of Grimsley when you got to North Carolina. How did your role as a player change to the Grimsley? If I remember correctly, they're just a very big scorer back in the day. I'm sure it was a kind of an adjustment, kind of a wake-up call. You get to college, you got to kind of redefine, kind of rework yourself in a little bit.
Yeah, it was. It was a different role, but Coach Smith was always really upfront with me about that. Even when he recruited me, I remember we had dinner right over here at Anton's, right down the road when he recruited me. But anyway, he told me that I would, be a practice. He didn't know if I would ever start or not, and I would be a practice player and there to help the first team reach their potentials and push them hard every day in practice. So he never really promised anything. He was always very, very truthful with me, and I appreciated that.
And you're coming out of Grimsley. How did you go from Grimsley to North Carolina? When did the recruiting start? How did that recruiting process go for you coming out of Grimsley?
It went well. I think they started recruiting me some my junior year. Back in the day, they really didn't recruit as early as they do now. But I had a chance to go to University of Virginia, Wake Forest, or North Carolina. I visited those three schools, and Coach Smith just really won me over. I knew that he really cared for me as an individual, and I knew he maybe would be able to help me get to Europe and play basketball, and that was one of my big goals.
So you already had that goal in mind before you got to college, and you had the backup plan going in case the NBA doesn't work out for you. You've got another trip in mind there.
Yes, I did.
That's thinking ahead. That's good long-term thinking there, good long-term planning.
I knew I wasn't good enough playing the NBA, so, but I thought maybe I could play in Europe. But that was just the greatest experience for me, Andy. I was able to go. Coach Smith helped me get there, first of all, and then getting over there, and I was my role changed again, and so I was the one American on this team in Belgium, and you had to get your 20 or 30 points a game, or they would send you home. And
Exactly.
I remember when I was first there, I played like I did at Carolina. I was passing the ball around, and I remember my buddy came up and said, "Hey, you need to get your 25, or you're not going to be here long." But I was lucky to stay with that same team for 3 years, and actually played forward with another team there for a fourth year. So it was just a great experience for me. I met my wife there, and I learned another language. Ended up being a French teacher here. I
remember you became a French teacher, did a lot of teaching over at Cournotable back in the day, too. Cournotable Middle. People kind of forget about Cournotable because you had North Carolina, you had the time overseas playing ball, like you say, in Belgium, and you came back, coached at Dudley, did a little work at Wesleyan, a little work at Greensboro College. Hard to believe you've got all this done in this short span of time. You've been a busy man. A lot of different stops along the way, but good stops, it sounds like, too. All were good stops for you.
Yeah, well, I have to credit Coach Smith with really helping me and getting all that started. I mean, he was right behind me with every career move that I made, and of course, trying to use his philosophy and teach fundamentals in the game the way that he taught us, and he just meant so much to me. I don't know where I would be, really, if it wasn't for Coach Smith.
How did you guys stay in contact? When you leave North Carolina, you're going on about your way, you're starting to spread your wings and fly out of here a little bit. How did you guys go about staying in contact?
Yeah, we just called on the telephone a lot, and I would work the summer camp. I've worked the summer camp every summer since 1976. I think I missed 1 year, but every summer since '76 I'd work the camp, and we would reconnect then, and we would just stay in contact by telephone, and he would always call, and
So he would
write
call you
letters.
a lot of
and-
times.
Yes,
Yeah. Wow.
yeah.
That's amazing.
Andy, you wouldn't believe it. He would send my mom a Christmas card every Christmas for like 20 years.
Even
in a
after
row,
you're long gone.
with a personal note on it, and he was
amazing.
really incredible guy.
I tell you, he sure was a genuine person, cared about his people, and sometimes when the work is finished, I remember a coach a couple of times in the year said, "Well, it's now you're on your own. Your last event, your last game, it's trailways, buddy. Hit the road. You're on your own now." But Coach Smith stayed with you guys and kept up, and that was a lot of guys to keep up with too.
Yeah, a whole lot of guys to keep up with. I can tell you a little story. In 1997, when Coach Smith retired, I was coaching at Greensboro College, and I heard he was going to have a press conference, and I thought, well, maybe I should go on down there to the press conference and see what Coach Smith says. So I went down to the press conference, and at first they didn't want to let me in. They said, "No, this is full. You can't get in." I said, "I played for Coach Smith. You got to let me in." So the guy let me in. I kind of stood in the very back, and Coach made his speech, and Coach Guthridge was going to take over the reins, and everything was good. And I was getting ready to leave, and the athletic secretary said, "Yeah, you ought to come up and talk to Coach Smith." I said, "No, I don't really want to do that. I don't want to bother him right now." And she said, "No, really, you ought to come up and talk to him." And she talked me into it. So I went up to the basketball office and walked down the hall. She said, "Yeah, they're right around there, right around the corner." So I walked around the corner, and Coach Smith was there with Larry Brown and John Thompson. So those three guys were just sitting there, and I come walking in, and I thought Coach wouldn't even remember my name. He'd been having such a emotional press conference,
Exactly.
but he said, "Bill, hey, how you doing?" He said, "Yeah, how's your mom Betty doing?"
He asked what's your mom by first name.
Yeah, and then he said, "And how's your sister Jane?"
Wow.
I mean, he may have talked to Jane in 1971 on the phone
Maybe
for
one time.
and
Wow.
yeah.
I remembered your sister's name.
Yeah.
Wow, the memory of it. That was what hurt a lot of people too. A lot of people were kind of saddened by the fact as he got older and he started to lose that memory. That was the one thing that was always golden for him. He could remember so much, but then that was taken away. It was like a big loss for him and the people that knew him too.
Yeah, it's really tough. He had a great memory, and then towards the end, he just really struggled with that.
Tell you what, those camps, that has to be something. I've heard people talk about those camps so much. I think Freddie Johnson, he's going to join us later tonight too. He worked a lot of camps back when he was a younger coach, and I remember the stories about Fred Whitfield working those camps back in his younger days, how he met Michael Jordan. But those summer camps, those basketball camps, that's where guys really form a lot of bonds.
Right. Yeah, they do. Yeah, it's really the highlight of my summer to be able to go back to Chapel Hill and work with the youngsters and see other high school coaches and see some guys that I played with at Chapel Hill, and of course see the coaches from Chapel Hill. It's always a great couple of weeks for me.
And your mother and sister and maybe your dad, all those people were basketball people. They played basketball. They grew up around basketball too, right?
Yeah, they did. Yeah, they did. Yeah, my dad was a pretty good player. And
Where did he play
coached-
college ball?
He played at William and Mary.
Tell you what, I think I may have something on him. Is he the same Bill Chambers? I looked up this today, maybe. This might be the biggest thing we've had on this, if I'm right, if I'm on the money, might be the biggest thing we've ever had, in my opinion, had on this show. Is he the same? Because I saw a picture of him. He looked just like you back in your younger day. He coached later, too, William and Mary, right?
Yeah, that's right.
He went to E.C. Glass High School in Lynchburg, Virginia. 22-0 that last year to win the championship. And your dad also. This is what gets off. This breaks off. If I could just, these people here tonight eating their food at Shan's Rib Shack, they're going to eat their food, have a good meal, they'll enjoy that. But this was my appetite. This had my 51 rebounds in a game. The NCAA all-time record, and this is called one of the Untouchables. That's your dad, right?
That's my dad.
That's amazing, man. Never did it, boy. This is unreal. 51 rebounds in one. I thought it had to be him because I saw that photo. I started reading that on Wikipedia and said, man, this is too much. This has got to be the connection right here. 51, and a little kid walking through, maybe they remember Bill Russell. I don't know if Bill ever got 51 rebounds in the game. That's the first thing I think about rebounds. My basketball, watching as a kid, I used to love watching Bill Russell play because he rebounded so well. That's your dad. That's the man right there. The man, unreal. Unreal. 51. I mean, the closest thing anybody got was like 43, I think, a few years back.
Yeah. Well,
That's
yeah,
amazing.
he's proud. He's even more proud. He said that, at home sometimes, they don't always keep the stats right, but he was really a great rebounder.
They knew what was going on because I heard somebody told us you got 26 at halftime.
Right,
26, that's amazing.
that's right. Well, he's really proud of. He had 43 at Cincinnati when Cincinnati was really a good team, and they went up there, but he had 43 on the road, and Yeah, he was a great rebounder, really great at positioning and boxing out, and had a real knack for grabbing the ball.
That's the man right there, without a doubt. The same Bill Chambers. That's your dad, 51 rebounds in a game. How did you not end up at William & Mary? I mean, did they pursue you when you were in high school? You think they did have to?
Yeah, I think they recruited me some, yeah.
Yeah. And they had good basketball back in those days, too, if I remember correctly. It's very good
my
basketball
dad
back
coached
in the day.
back in the 60s. I think 56 to 66 he was at William & Mary. So they had some good teams.
I think his career win record or one of his coaching records is just recently broken by a guy from High Point, Tony. It's another Carolina man, Tony Shaver. Yeah. I think he just maybe eclipses maybe career wins. He got 110 wins, but it's amazing all those. We were talking about those bonds, those summer camps, all these interchangeable parts, and they all come together like that. Shaver, Carolina man, a High Point guy. He's the guy that actually broke one of your dad's records, but nobody. They still call that the untouchable. 51 rebounds. It's unreal. It's unreal. Yeah. I mean, that's some great basketball memories. I mean, if I'm a kid, I would have to be going places. My dad. You probably were a good rebounder in your day too, because your dad was 6'4". They said they had another guy on the team later, 6'5". Said, it doesn't matter how tall. This guy knows how to box and knows how to get the boards.
Yeah, he was good at that. Yeah, I was more of a shooter. I wasn't that tough of a guy like my dad was. But
man, is he? Let me ask: is he still living today? No?
Yes, he's living. He's down in Alabama.
That's what I read on that Wikipedia site. It said he was down in Alabama. I thought that's what made me kind of wonder. I was going to let you kind of lead us in. That's why I asked, was your mom a basketball person? I said, but man, your dad in Alabama now, and they got his photo on Wikipedia. The Bill Chambers. You came up first on Yahoo. You got to feel good about that. You were first on Yahoo. Your dad was the one on Wikipedia. I mean, that's still anybody who has any appreciation for the game at all. I mean, that is just. Kids playing today, they just play a lot of times just one way. It's all about the scoring and all about the give me the ball. But the rebounding, that dirty work. I mean, back when earlier days, you had some guys, they were considered kind of like, this is kind of my rebounding man. This is kind of my assist man. But it was Carolina. That was about Carolina basketball back in the day. Every year they'd had that ACC tournament. They would print that little front page of the News and Record Sports section, list all the stats. Carolina point guards always had 6 points a game and maybe about 7 or 8 assists a game. That was the system. That's how it worked.
Right. Yeah, we try to emphasize that at Northern Guilford as well. Just really look at our assist-error ratio for every game. How many assists you make compared to how many mistakes that you make, and that's really important.
Are you still able to kind of bring in a lot of the same things you had back in your days at Carolina, Wesleyan, Dudley, Greensboro College, all the stops along the way? Can you do that same type of thing, some of those same things at Northern?
Oh yeah. It's pretty much North Carolina's system, or their offense and defense and the fundamentals way that Coach Smith taught me, and try to have the same overall philosophy about the development of fundamentals and really teaching life lessons through the sport is what I'm about and what we're about at Northern, and what I've always done with my programs is try to teach kids how to sacrifice for the team, how to be unselfish, how to always give their best effort. That it's more than just individuals. It's about this team accomplishing goals, and that's what we really work on at Northern.
And people may lose the fact you also coached, I guess, at Coronado. Is that right? Did some coaching there too?
Yeah.
So here's a guy who played for North Carolina, played in the pros over in Europe, and then went on to coach at Dudley, and then Wesleyan and Greensboro College, and now at Northern Guilford. But also during one stretch, he was coaching middle school ball at Coronado Middle while he was being a French teacher. That was kind of a fun time. We probably had some pretty good kids at Coronado on some of those teams too, I would think.
Oh yeah, we did. We had some really good kids, and that was a great time in my life too. I really enjoyed teaching and coaching at the middle school. And you can teach the fundamentals to players at that age, when they're developing, and really teach them the correct way to do something. I think you can make a huge difference in their lives. And when you get to high school, it's a lot harder to break bad habits. But when you catch them young and can teach them really the right way to do things and have a real impression on them, I think you can make a huge difference.
And you can't teach some of those things we saw Trey Marsh do a couple weeks back at your place against Eastern. I mean, when your guy goes up, he's around the basket, some of that just comes naturally, I guess.
Yeah, Trey's a great athlete and really a fun guy to be around. He's really a polite guy and an excellent player for us. He's really coming on and playing better and better every game.
Jack Emmert's quieted down a little bit. He had to carry quite a bit of the load the first part of the year. The other guys started coming around, I guess.
Yeah, and Jack's been injured the last couple of games. He's kind of played through a tough ankle injury, and he's been in some pain. So, yeah, he hadn't shot the ball real well, but I think he'll be ready next week.
And you're right now, I think 16-8 on the year, and number 2 behind Eastern Alabama in the conference. I mean, number 2 in that conference is pretty darn good. That Mid-State 3A conference, that's a tough conference there. People realize.
Yeah, it's a good basketball conference, and we're real happy with how we played, particularly after Christmas. We won our last 2 games in the HACO tournament, and then we went on a little win streak there in our league. And Eastern Guilford has been the tough game for us. They've beaten us two times, but boy, they have a good player in Quason Williams.
That shot he made at your place that night when he was trying to make that. I thought he was trying to make a save, but he heaves it all the way across the court. He goes to the basket. That was a wild bucket that night.
Oh, he's just had 2 great games against us. So if we run into them again, we'll have to come up with something better to try to contain him, because he's a heck of a player.
And Coach Spinks put a little deal out there the last time he was there. Got some hush puppies coming in. Might want to try some of those in a minute. But Coach Spinks was there, and they had one of his players, I think, got fouled, and he couldn't shoot the free throws, and he had taken Quason out. Quason comes in, shoots those 2 free throws real quick, and he gets right back in the line to protect him. I thought that was kind of a slick move.
That was a slick move. Yeah, Coach Spinks does a great job with those guys. He has all guards, really.
He sure does.
He really has a small team, but they play really well together. They play a good zone defense. They played some boxing 1 against us. Yeah, he had them ready for us.
That's a wild thing, because you've got mainly, especially the first part of the year and still now too, a post team. He's got a guard team. Your guard, I guess, is Boyd for the most part. Your guard, and a little bit of Max Maynard maybe out front helping him out there some too. But you got Hildreth, you got Gibson. They're doing quite well. You got the guys, Jack Emmerich, you got Marsh. All those guys are mainly your big men. You've got a tall team, more of an interior type team.
Right, yeah, that's our strength for sure, is our big guys. And yeah, we've rebounded pretty well this year, although we've had a little problem with giving up too many offensive rebounds. So some of those wiry guards can kind of get in there around our big guys and be able to get some offensive rebounds. So we got to do a little bit better job of that coming down here in the tournament. So
how are you looking
box
at the
out a little
tournament?
bit
You
better.
go in, I guess, as a number 2 seed, and that begins next week?
That's right. We play Monday as our first game. I think there's still some games being played this Friday, and we're not sure who we're going to play Monday. It'll be the 2 seed against the 7 seed.
See, there's some teams.
There's 3 teams, I think, with 4 losses, so we're not sure who we're going to play.
Some teams
yet.
that people should be wary of when that tournament. You got teams like a Moorhead, a McMichael, some of those teams that maybe not at the very top.
Yeah.
Those guys have got that. Moorhead team's got that Pfeiffer kid. I think he averages close to 30 points a game. He's crazy.
He's an excellent player. We played them in our last game. He had 34. So we tried to do some different things, double teaming him and different things to stop him, but he's hard to stop. But yeah, the Moorhead game, we played pretty well. Got a win up there, so it's good to finish the regular season with the W.
Going back to the academics, how did Coach Smith go about stressing the academics? Because you guys were a traveling team back in those days. You guys were playing a lot of places, had a busy schedule. I think you finished pretty well on the top, toward the Final Four, I guess, while you were there. So how did you guys handle that academics, and how do you use maybe some of the things he taught you back academics now to help your own players?
Yeah. Well, he would just keep up with us, how we were doing in every class, and we were just talking with Coach Smith a lot. He would bring us into his office and talk to us about how each class was going, and he was generally concerned and cared about everybody too. He wanted to know, what I was really interested in, and whether math or English or psychology was what I got my major in. That's what I really was interested in, and we would talk about those type things. I remember he gave me a book by Norman Vincent Peale, I think, The Power of Positive Thinking, and so we shared a lot of ideas, and he just kept up with all the players about how they were doing academically. So yeah, in our program, we just stress that's first. Academics always come first, and we're student athletes, and student comes before athletes.
All that travel you did, how did that kind of help you get your feet underneath you too? Because you had a chance to see the world back in your days.
Yeah, we had a lot of great trips, and I really loved that. Travel was always been one of my goals in life. And I think my freshman year, I was lucky enough to make the trip to Hawaii, and that was just awesome.
Was that the Maui Classic?
Yes, that's right.
That's been a classic for Carolina over the years. They played in that just numerous times, right?
Well, it was a Rainbow Classic.
The old Rainbow too back in the day. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I think we won the tournament that year too, in 1972. So That was a great experience. We went to Madrid one time, Madrid, Spain, and played Real Madrid. I think we lost to Real Madrid in the first round. We played Cuba, the national team from Cuba, and we won that in the next game. That was great to go to Spain. Of course, trips all over to Florida and New York, Madison Square Garden, New York. I went to San Francisco, went to Dallas, Texas. So we got to go to a lot of places around the United States, and some international travel as well.
Staying closer to home, did you guys play your games back then in the Carmichael Auditorium? You guys are probably, before they had the big building, you guys were playing in the older building, I guess.
Yeah, we played in Carmichael, and it was a great place to play. It would get really loud, really loud, and it was always hot too. They said that Coach Smith would turn up the heat.
That too. Yeah,
turn up the heat in there. I'm not sure if that's true or not, but I think it was just a hot gym. But gosh, it could get really, really loud. Yeah, I'll never forget that game we played against Duke there. We were down by 8 points with 16 seconds left.
Is that the one Walter Davis went crazy in?
Yeah, that's when Walter Davis hit a shot from like 30 feet to put it into overtime.
You've got some great memories. That's one of the all-time greats, I would say. People talk about that one today, and I'll probably talk about that game forever.
One of the greatest comebacks ever. But I remember how Coach Smith was so calm. He would say, okay, we're going to overplay, and we're going to get a steal on this possession and score, and then we're going to call timeout. And that's what happened. And then he said, okay, we're going to try to get a steal. If we can't get a steal, we're going to foul, and they're going to miss the free throw, and we're going to go down and score. And that's what happened. But he was always so positive and so in control. He never cursed and never really raised his voice. Sometimes behind closed doors, he would get kind of raise his voice.
Did you take some of that same demeanor yourself? Because you've always seemed kind of like a calm type guy too.
I try to be like Coach Smith.
Yeah, because somebody on your bench kind of technical that night at the Eastern Guilford game. I said, that can't be Coach Chambers. That had to be somebody on the bench over there getting called for that.
Yeah.
Probably was the assistant coach.
Well, that was me, but I don't get many of those. I think that's the only second one I've had at Northern. So
that's pretty darn good. That's good there. Very good there. Yeah, that Walter Davis shot, if I remember correctly, I may be wrong, but I think still see him on like the right sideline taking that shot late in the game, not too far in from maybe half court near that. Maybe he used to have those little hash marks on those courts in the old days. Those little interior little marks. Right there, he made the shot, and it was just huge. And you said again it was against Duke, and that had to make it even more impressive.
Oh yeah, crowd. I remember the crowd just going crazy when he made that shot. I think the next day in practice, Coach Smith said, "See if you can make it again." And Walter shot it and shot an air ball. But
man, they always do that, don't they? Always kind of interesting. After the guy hits a big shot, go back, try to recreate it. Right. Man, but it never works the same way. And he did that with the defense on him. Well, you had some great. You probably loved playing Duke, and probably loved playing everybody, but playing Duke and playing State, that had to be something special too.
Yeah, NC State was a big rival back then. They had Thompson and Tao and Burleson.
You got to go against those guys?
Yeah. I remember. We had some great games. They were tough to beat. I think, were they undefeated state?
They won,
undefeated national champions?
Undefeated the year before they won the title. They lost once the title year. They lost to UCLA in St. Louis in December. They beat UCLA here in the Coliseum in the Final Four. But the year before they were undefeated because they were on probation that year. I think it was 73. They were undefeated, and they won it all in 74. There was some kind of illegal recruiting system. Might have worked a little bit when David Thompson came in, but they were undefeated in 73, and they lost one game in 2 years.
I can tell you a little story about David Thompson. I had to guard him, or try to guard him in a game, but I remember Coach Smith was putting me in the game, and he said, "Bill, you're good at overplaying, right?" And I said, "Yeah, I can overplay." He said, "Okay, well, just overplay him. Don't let him get the ball." He said, "He can't score if he doesn't get the ball." And so I was playing against him, and he got the ball anyway on the sideline, and he tried to drive baseline, and I cut off the baseline. So that's like my claim to fame is David Thompson trying to drive baseline, and I cut him off.
That's the defense you probably still teach today. Everybody, that's a good point you bring up because that's always been such an important thing. If you get to that baseline first, it should be able to stop the player coming down that baseline.
Yeah. We like to stop. We like to cut off the baseline, kind of force baseline and cut it off. I know Coach Smith in later years would kind of let you drive baseline and trap down there.
Two people come in.
Yeah. And we've done that a little bit at Northern, but right now we're trying to trap on the baseline. We try to cut off the baseline.
Other than the basketball arena in Chapel, any other favorite spots you guys had in Chapel Hill, hangout spots back in the day in Chapel Hill? Because you spend so much time in probably practice in Woodland Gym, practice in Carmichael Gym, practice all over. But where would you guys hang out at away from the games?
We would go downtown some. There's a place called He's Not Here that the players would go to some, and there was a place back then called Town Hall that guys would go to. But But yeah, we spent a lot of time studying actually, but
Yeah, that's today people would say,
practicing.
really? They would question that today, but I'm sure back in that day you were doing work in the classroom, staying on top of those things.
that's right.
And you finished in 4 years and then packed the bags and took off, like you say, toward. Was there any NBA talk at all? Any NBA discussions?
Not really. I think Coach Smith talked to the New York Knicks, and I may have been drafted in one of the later rounds, but I think that was just kind of to help me get over to Europe.
Let them see that you were a part of the draft and get them thinking about you a little bit over there.
Yeah.
Once you got there, that was all business. I'm sure, like you say, you got to get that average up to about 20, 25 points a game to keep your spot over in Europe.
Right. Yeah, it was a great experience for me. Like I mentioned, I was the one American on this team, and but really kind of integrated myself and enjoyed the players and enjoyed the people around the program. And I met my wife the first year I was there, and yeah, it was just a great experience. I learned French, and that was a lot of fun. But I really tried to kind of get to know people there and try to kind of blend into their culture.
And then you came back after how many years, and where did you first land when you came back to the U.S. after that experience?
Yeah, I played from 1976 to 1980 in Belgium, and then just decided it was time to come home and get serious about a career. I came back here to Greensboro and went to UNC-CH, and I have a major in psychology from Chapel Hill, but I came back to UNC-CH and got my teaching certification in French, and did my student teaching in French. I did my student teaching at Dudley High School, and I got well, actually my first job was as JV coach at Grimsley, my very first job while I was going to UNC-CH. And then when I did my student teaching at Dudley, I got the job at Dudley High School and coached there for 5 years and taught French and social studies there.
Who was your coach? I may have asked this, I don't know if you know, but back at Grimsley, who coached you back in the day? Who did you pick up the high school lead from? Who led you back then?
Yeah, Bob Jameson was my
You were
coach.
the man then. Boy, you think about coaches. Boy, you had Bob Jameson and had Dean Smith. Those were your two main coaches. That's unreal.
Yeah, both were great men and great coaches. Yeah, Coach Jameson was really an excellent coach, really taught the fundamentals well, and he had a good demeanor about him and good reputation with the players, and he taught me a lot.
And did you guys have a chance to win a state title while you were over at Grimsley? I mean, you mentioned you had that shot with Bobby Jones in South Mecklenburg. Did you guys go on to maybe go for a state title?
My junior year, we had a great team. We only lost 2 games the whole year, and we should have been right there in the States. But at that time, if you didn't win the conference tournament, you didn't progress into the States. And Burlington Williams had a fantastic team. They had a guy named Jeff Crompton.
I was going to say, they had the big man back then. Wow.
Jeff Crompton, 7-foot center, and Wayne Hightower. I remember these guys. Wayne Hightower, 6'5" on one wing, and Troy Slade, another 6'5" on the other wing. And those guys could play. Danny Morrison, I think, was the point guard.
That's the guys with the Carolina Panthers out of president of the team.
That's right.
Amazing.
That's right.
Wow.
But they had a great team. We beat them at their place, and they beat us at our place. And then we played in the conference tournament finals to see who went on in the States, and we lost in triple overtime.
Wow.
Burlington Williams. But
I'm sure Jeff Crompton probably put up numbers that people would also be astonished at to some degree today. He was like, he used to play the son of the plumber, coming out of the hard-earned neighborhoods of Burlington, and went on to Carolina, and he played a little bit in the pros too, I think, because he was just such a big man.
Yeah, he was really a good player. He had great hands and great footwork. He was quicker than people think. But Jeff and I became really good friends at Carolina. We were adversaries in high school, became like best of friends in college. And yeah, he played some in the NBA, played overseas a little bit.
I think
he was a great player,
since
great
passed
guy.
away too, I believe. Yeah,
he had leukemia and passed away about 10 years ago.
But all those contacts, all those people you had association with over the years, your experiences are unreal. I mean, it's just got to be surreal. I mean, even go back when your dad was playing back in his day. I mean, all that basketball connection. Did you guys have like a little neighborhood park you played in growing up as a kid, where all this kind of got in your blood back when you were a kid growing up here? And how'd you guys end up here, coming out of Virginia? How'd you guys end up here?
Yeah, well, I grew up pretty much in Williamsburg, Virginia.
Gotcha.
William and Mary.
Okay. Yeah.
And I haven't told many people this story, but I remember begging my father to give me a goal. I really wanted a basketball goal I could put in the driveway. And And just begging him to do that, and finally he just said no. He says, if you want to be a player, you're going to walk the mile down the road to the playground and play with those guys. If you want to be a player, you need to get out there on the playground and mix it up with those guys. So
he pushed you down the street, got you involved then.
Yeah, he did.
Wow.
We moved here to Greensboro. I went to Kaiser. 8th grade year, and my dad took a job with Converse.
Wow, Converse as far as the shoe company goes.
Yeah.
Was he like one of the traveling sales type
That's
people?
right. That's
That's
right.
good stuff.
Yeah. His territory was North Carolina, South Carolina, and Greensboro was kind of a central location.
That'd be for people who wouldn't think about it today. That'd almost be like something for Nike today, something for Converse back then, because everybody wore Converse.
That's right.
Those Chuck Taylor's All-Stars, the only shoes people wore back in the day.
That's right.
Your dad had that spot. That's amazing. That's amazing there. I see those little basketball goals on some streets, but you don't see those goals out. Like you talked about putting a goal up in a drive. You don't see them quite as much as you did back in the day.
Yeah.
Still see a few. I go down the street sometimes in the morning. I see these little kids. Their goals are still kind of lowered. They still got the little small goals, but he pushed you to play, and I think Mike Lewis, or one of those guys from Duke, Mike Lewis, or one of those Duke players later became a Converse guy, I think, down the road.
That's right, yes.
Yeah, you had that connection there. That's some good experiences. If you had to kind of sum it all up, what Coach Smith meant to you, what he instilled in you, and what you took out of there, and what you brought with you, still probably take this with you to your dying day. What did he leave with you, the lasting legacy there?
Yeah, well, like you mentioned, Andy, I've just had so many great experiences in my life, and a lot of it is because of Coach Smith recruiting me to go to North Carolina and then helping me get to Europe. I really don't know where I would be today if I didn't have Coach Smith in my life. And just experiences, at Dudley High School, I really enjoyed that and just loved those players. And we had a great team. We had a couple of really good teams there. And
who were some of your kids we might remember from Dudley back in that day? Any of those guys' names pop out for you back in that day?
Clarence Greer was a good player.
He's the guy who's now just came to Greensboro. I think the assistant city manager came here from Orangeboro, or Orange County, Hillsboro.
Yeah.
Orange County. He just came. Boy, Clarence Greer at Campbell back then, that guy could play ball all day long.
Yeah, Clarence was a really good player for us. He's kind of the main one that sticks in my mind. I know Freddie Barnes played a couple years.
He went to Penn State. Yeah,
went to Penn State.
Freddie Barnes, outstanding player.
His brother Denard Barnes was a good player too.
Mm-hmm. Did you run into Jack Chatham, Coach Chatham, any coaching against him, or maybe playing against Coach Chatham? Because I read today somewhere where he might have been the coach that mentored and worked with Bob McAdoo over at Smith back in the day.
That's right. Yeah, I know Coach Chatham. He was always a real gentleman.
And you saw Bob McAdoo today. You saw so many people you probably couldn't begin to list all the players you ran into today in Coach Smith's funeral.
Yeah, I saw a lot of the guys today. Michael Jordan was there. Bob McAdoo and Mitch Kupchak.
Sam Perkins, James Worthy.
Sam Perkins, yeah. I didn't see those. I didn't have a chance to talk to them, but yeah.
How about the guys like George Carl and J.R. Reed, guys like that?
George Carl was there.
Yeah. George Carl was a big Carolina factor back in his day. I thought one time he may come back and be the coach there, the way things were going at one time. When they went through the changes there, I thought maybe one time George Carl was a strong candidate to come back there and coach.
Right, yeah, I think he was. Yeah, he's done so well in the NBA, and he was a great player too. I was a freshman. George Carl was a senior when I was a freshman.
You had Steve Previs and some of those guys around you too, right?
Previs had graduated.
Yeah, okay. How about this one guy? I wrote his name down today from Wikipedia. This guy, Roger Jamison. Was he a player? Was he a manager? Said he was a Greensboro kid. You remember him at all, Roger Jamison?
Roger Jamison. Did he play in the 80s?
He played in your time frame. He was back along your time frame. I thought he might have been a manager. Had him listed as a former Greensboro player coming through there. And I thought it was kind of interesting. You had Bob McAdoo that came through. Yourself came through. Quite a few kids from around Greensboro. Coach Smith did a good job of working this territory.
Yeah, he did. And Bob McAdoo is just such a gentleman, such a good guy. I always enjoy talking to him. He's so down to earth. You would think that him being such a great scorer and such a great player in the NBA that he might be aloof or something like that. But he's just down to earth, as nice as he can be.
It tells a lot more about his character too. The fact he became regular with the Miami Heat after his playing career was over. Kind of went into coaching and also into some public relations with the team as well. Good thing.
Yeah, he's been with the Heat for a long time.
It's about 18 years, I think. Yeah. Well, you've got to get rolling. Coach Johnson's come in, and again, we appreciate you taking time. I think we enjoyed what you talked talked about with Coach Smith today, but the thing I uncovered today about your dad, I mean, that's just unreal. So the 51 rebounds in one game, NCAA, that's the record that will never be touched. And just, you got to, I mean, you had Coach Jameson, you had Coach Smith, you had your dad. I don't know if you could have had any better basketball bloodlines unless maybe Coach Wooden came by and shook your hand too. You might have ran into Coach John Wooden over the years when you were playing ball. You probably played against him maybe once, I guess, Carolina. Could have run into him sometime.
I'm not sure, but yeah, I've been blessed. I've been truly blessed.
Listen, keep up the good work. Thank you for your time. Always good to see you.
Andy.
Excellent job. Not only coaching, but doing the teaching too. That's a big thing you've done. And don't forget your Shane's Rib Shack meal. If you can eat it here or take it with you, either way, be sure to get that in too.
Thanks so much.
You got
Take
it.
care.
Coach Bill Chambers, Coach Freddie Johnson's up next. Coach Chambers' dad, Bill Chambers, just like him, 6'4", NCAA single game rebounding record, 51 rebounds in one game. Looked at, saw that today. I couldn't believe it. It's amazing what the Chambers family was able to do over the years. Just unreal.